Hello, cats and kittens, felines and felidae, humans and variant humans, and every race, class, and subclass. Welcome to another installment of Bringing the RPG Cat. Tonight, we're doing tabletop lore, and we are looking at Ginny Die's 2023 calendar. Well, at least that's what we're going to be doing for a start, and then afterwards, we're going to look a little bit more at the Sword Coast Adventurer's Guide. So, tonight's episode, just kind of embodies a bit of a viewer's choice. You wanted to see this, and I certainly wanted to show this to you. So, we're just going to take a look at the 2023 calendar, probably one or two of the websites associated with it, and then we're going to read some more of the Sword Coast Adventurer's Guide. So, let's go ahead and let's get started. First things first, let's talk about our sponsor. This stream is brought to you by GreatMedia.Games for inexpensive TCG single cards. Visit GreatMedia.Games and use the code 10Finity at checkout for 10% off of your online purchase. And also, the stream is currently donating to Extra Life supporting Children's Hospital Colorado. We're doing this with another group of people who are working on Great Media. Please give as much as your finances will allow. Follow the link in the chat. We're going to be keeping these links open until December 31st. So, thank you everybody for tuning in. Let's go ahead and let's start looking at the things that we have prepared for tonight's installment of Tabletop Lore. Alright, so this is Ginny Die's shopping channel, which is guinnydie.myshopify.com. My Shopify. guinnydie.myshopify.com. And this is the 2023 calendar. It is in stock, and it's about $30. So the way the product details read, this full color for 13-month fine art calendar. It's 8.5 by 11 closed, saddle stitched, and has a drilled hole for easy hanging. Features your favorite tabletop-inspired fantasy characters from Ginny Die's YouTube videos. So, we've watched some of Ginny Die's YouTube videos, and, we've had a few of them on the stream as well. But she does have just like a small stable of her own Dungeons & Dragons OCs that she usually uses to make her own merchandise. She's also extremely well known for creating cosplay for Critical Role, and she's also has been appeared in a few official Dungeons and Dragons videos. So this says, this is showcased in stunning natural locations across Colorado. In previous years, she did pin-up calendars, probably, studio photo calendars, and this is probably as close as she's actually gotten to doing something that is a little bit more strictly fantasy themed. So it's a really pretty calendar, and I'm looking forward to showing it to you in a minute. This is a standard edition. It will only include a printed wall calendar, and so the reason that they bring this up is that there used to be a special edition version of the calendar, and I managed to get that in a pre-order, but it's rather regrettably isn't in their on their website anymore. So let's go ahead. Well, okay, so they say sponsored by World Anvil, a world-building campaign management and novel writing software, which has all the tools you need to craft your campaign or novel. And since I got this calendar, I realized that there was a World Anvil sponsorship, and I'm looking into that website currently because I'm hoping that, pretty soon I'm going to be releasing some Brady the RPG Cat materials, and if there is really just a website, an online writing format that supports that, well then I'm all for that. I'm like, yippee, I'm going to write me some fantasy with with the help of this cool new website. And so, alright, so let's go ahead and let's take a look at the calendar. Okay, so here it is. As usual, I do not like to get my grubby paws on all of my nice collectibles, so I am using Mage Hand currently in order to display this for you. And so, this is the Ginny 2023 calendar in collaboration with World Anvil. And, let's see, published by Ginny is a YouTuber, singer, tabletop gaming nerd who loves long eyelashes and longer elf ears. Creative director is Jackie Linayo, designer and pop culture geek from the San Francisco Bay Area. And websites are ginnydie.com and Jackie Linayo, respectively. And fine art photography by Ellie Rich and Dylan Richardson. They're the people who are responsible for the very excellent photos that appear in this calendar. 2023 with Ginny Die features 12 months of never-before-seen fine art photography featuring Ginny Die's original characters, plus a bonus month for 2024. Created in collaboration with World Anvil, an award-winning world-building, campaign management, and writing software. We got that off of the website. So, all of the tools for your campaign or novel, sounds good to me. So, just before we look at the calendar, like as I had previously said, this was a special edition, and it actually did come with a set of dice. And so they come in this branded dice bag. It says dice. Like I'm in the letter people right now. Dice. We're doing the electric company. So this die particularly has to do with Ginny Die's logo. Okay, so we're going to open these up and then we're going to look at the dice inside. And so they're very lovely. So I'm not entirely sure, how well this is going to show up on the video capture, but they are clear plastic, and they also have an injection of gray plastic in the middle, which gives every die a very lovely smoking appearance. And okay, so this here, of course, this is the D20, the main die that you need for any installment of Dungeons and Dragons. I'm a great hand model. And so this is the D12 right here. See, a little bit more filled than some of the other ones, in my opinion. Here's a D10. And so, in addition to, the very smoky appearance of them, they also have a very lovely font on them. Just a somewhat elegant medieval serif type of font on them, and that's very nice. Okay, this is the D6. Alright. This is the D4. And so I think, that probably shows a little bit more of the plasticine effect in these dice than some of the other ones. Particularly when you look in between the 6 and the 4, you can see just areas of the clear plastic in between the smoky interior. And so this is the percentage. Okay, very nice. And finally, this is the D4. They put the corner dice on there. I do tend to prefer D4s that actually put the numbers on the corners as opposed to the ones that put the numbers on the base. I just feel like personally they're a little bit easier for me to read. Alright. So that's the dice set, and that is the custom bag that they came in. And so you can really only just barely see dice once again. Let me take that. Let me put that on the other side because that makes it a little bit more better viewable. And so the calendar, it has a very lovely cover. I think it's got nice Gothic windows, and well, I'm not aware who the character is, but we're certainly going to look at that when we open the calendar. But yeah, this is very nice, just lovely put together composition with some smoke machine effect in the background. You know, now that I look at the two of these together, I think they actually match the dice really well. This definitely was a set of dice that was patterned directly after the 2023 calendar. All right, so let's open this up. Okay, so here's January. So trying to show this in a way so that my camera lamp doesn't obscure too much of the photo. But let's see, this here is Temper. Temper, the fire genasi, is a skilled blacksmith like her mother before her. In her free time, she indulges her love of storytelling by writing an epic ballad featuring all of the tallest tales her adventure customers bring her. And so, as the backdrop is up against a forge, and then so you do see just a significant amount of red light echoing off of the sides of this. And here in this far off corner, there's a cat. I just felt that there was some particular reason I needed to point that out. But there is a cat there. And so, well, you know, the feed is never really going to be able to do it justice, but it does. There's a lot of smoke in the background, which kind of outlines the silhouette of the forge that she's working in. But mostly, yeah, you just see the shadows of things in this image. Okay. February is augury. Augury. Those who know of Augury the Tiefling know two things. First, for the right price, she can get them whatever they need, no matter how rare or illegal. Second, crossing her will be the last decision they ever made. And so she's posed up against, you know, just another medieval-looking window against sets of rock walls. And, you know, these are some pretty lovely locales, and, you know, they actually happen to be here in my home state of Colorado. Is that, you know, this is definitely something that I might want to seek out myself, you know, if I want to create some illustrations. I say, hello, Devin. Nice of you to come in. So we're on to March with Morelia. Morelia the Wood Witch can be counted on to craft the very best charms and potions, so long as she doesn't get distracted, or misplace ingredients, or need to make some last-minute substitutions. And so this picture, you know, is probably in the woodlands, probably part of one of Colorado's very nicely populated public park areas. And I think she's in a particularly lovely dress, is that she is dressed in white, but she also has a lot of nice green trim in that one. See, I forgot you were going to share your cool new stuff with us. Did I miss the dice? You did miss the dice, but I'm willing to show it to you one more time before we go on to tabletop lore. Yeah, she's very pretty. Well, you know, she takes very excellent photos. And there's a good chance that I am probably going to see them. I'm going to see her on the 28th when she does a signing for this calendar over at the Wizard's Hat. I believe it's the Wizard's Hat store in downtown Colorado. So I'm probably, you know, I'm more than likely going to get this sign afterwards. So this is April. May Bell. You find Maybelle the fairy in a glass jar for sale out of a merchant's cart. She tells you how she was captured and taken from her meadow. If you can help her find her way back, she might grant you a fey boon. But be careful what deals you make. And so she was miniaturized, she was put in this image, and in the background is just a little bit more of that, you know, lovely natural backdrop, you know. I've seen a lot of these just really large, I believe they're limestone boulders all throughout the public parks in Colorado. Okay. May has Thicket. Thicket, the dryad, doesn't often get the opportunity to travel from her tree, but she loves the strange and mystifying world of mortals whenever she has the good fortune to encounter it. And so while she's standing on a log, I certainly doubt that, she did something like climb a tree for this, but, or maybe they're doing a foreground trick. It's kind of hard to tell. But, there's some excellent photography. I should shout out the photographer just one more time before I start to pull all of this out. So, okay. June has Artemisa, the centaur, and this is probably one of Giddy Die's most popular costumes. It's asked about a lot on her YouTube channel. She provides a lot of YouTube channel tutorials about how to make it. Artemisia, it's no wonder Artemisia is so skilled at cultivating plants of all kinds, considering that she was raised by a treant. Though she lost her herd in a forest fire, she finds her community in the growing things around her. Alright. So, okay. July has Brindis. When Brindis publicly fills her role as the captain of the Princess Kilrin's personal guard, she is a stoic and deferential figure. But behind closed doors, she's a terminal jokester with the princess, her childhood friend. Okay, so I gotta angle that one just a little bit better because of the camera light. But I do really, really love this image. So I believe that they're outside the same place where they had taken the picture for February. And so that's really just a rock wall tower with a couple of windows against it. And she's standing on a great big pile of limestone rocks. This is very lovely. Okay, so... Okay, August, Wisteria. Wisteria the gnome is proof that no amount of expensive education can transform an unremarkable gnome into a capable wizard. At best, her arcane efforts amount to nothing. At worst, bystanders beware. And so, once again, she is in a white dress, but, it's also that she is in a very lovely light blue skirt and also some very nice royal blue vest and hat. And so, that's in contrast with the pink hair and the gold glasses that she's wearing. And she is standing on an iron staircase, probably an iron staircase that has to do with a public park tower. And in the background, there's just one of the very vast hills of towering trees that you do find, quite often around Colorado. Okay. So this is September. This is Undertow. So, I know that some people do praise her a lot for the mermaid outfit, but it is also that she very personally took a lot of time and investment in order to get her mermaid tail, and that's also just some of the details that she brings out in her YouTube channel. It is not the vast dark ocean that swimmers and sailors should fear. It is the undertow. The malevolent creature of the deep may appear beautiful until she drags her prey beneath the frigid waves to drown. Okay, and, well, it's to say, I don't think that, there's a natural outdoor or location-based background here. I think she's against a velvet blue sheet. They did take a significant amount of time, making it look like the vine that she's clutching in her hand and her hair gave it more of an underwater appearance. Okay, so October is Aisling. Just immediately, this one blows me away just because of, how lovely the river water backdrop is against her. Aisling, it was easy for a young Aisling the elf, outcast by her people, to accept an arcane bargain and trade her allegiance and service for dark powers. After all, she's been called Witch Daughter her whole life. Why not at least earn the nickname? And so, I think this is really one of the best displays in this calendar. It is a display of, just the natural rivers and waters that we have in the greater part of Colorado. And so she's sitting on that rock in the corner. And so yeah, these photos are gorgeous. As once again, I gotta make sure, one more time I take a look at the I mentioned the photographer again. Nakrasha, the wife of a prison guard, can be dull, so Nakrasha the elf looks to her prisoners for entertainment. She also hopes establishing herself as a friendly face will prevent those who die in their cells coming back to haunt her. And so this is November's. So, once again, she's up in the mountains, and, she's been able to surround herself with what is virtually a rock throne. And so Nakrasha features a lot in her YouTube videos, and so she's really known for patenting, I probably shouldn't even say patenting, I should say popularizing an effect where she does face paint and for her face and her neck, and then afterwards she uses just shoulder length gloves in order to provide the exact same color on her arms. And so she does Nakrasha for this, but she also is very well known for portraying the Genasi from Critical Role. I'm spacing on their name right now. And she's well known for having a cosplay of the Laura Bailey character from season 2 of Critical Role, and she uses this exact same technique. And so this is one that is also done virtually the same way. Penelope. The first thing they notice when they meet Penelope the Deep Gnome is her friendly, outgoing personality. But with time, they may notice something darker, a feral rage simmering beneath her smile. So, Deep Gnome, it is really, really great in order to, just use a combination of makeup and costuming to just give a person that gray skin visage that Deep Gnomes are known for. And so this is set against a lovely background too. There's a significant amount of, I believe it's mossy growth against the rocks that are in the backdrop. And, even though we've seen a lot of mountain photos in the background, this one is lit in a way so that it looks completely gray as opposed to some of the ones that are on the higher mountaintops and are backlit by sunlight. And this is the January of 2024 image. This is Killerin. Princess Killerin the High Elf has been the unwilling regent of the Solstice Vale ever since her parents mysteriously disappeared. Each year she loses a little of her faith that they will return, reclaiming their thrones and clearing her name. So, I believe this is in this exact same locale that the cover was on. And so, it's just set up against those very tall Gothic style iron windows, and it's a much more close-up picture. But once again, to show you in contrast what that was compared to the cover, is that there's just a little bit more silhouetting in this one than in the final one. But it is certainly that they wanted to make something that was a little bit more up close version of this image for the final image in the calendar. So there it is, Ginny Dies 2023 calendar. Graphic design by Jackie Laneo, JackieLaneo.com, and Fine art photography by Ellie Rich and Dylan Richardson. EllieRich.com and DylanFilmPhoto.com, respectively. Contained. So this poster was worked on as a collaboration with World Anvil, and we're going to be looking at Ginny Dye's World Anvil site in just a moment. But first things first, once again, let me just give you another look at these very lovely dice. So these dice were sold with a special edition version of the calendar. And so I believe that they were made with a manufacturing license from another company, but unfortunately, since the dice version of the calendar is currently sold out, I'm not sure if I might be able to give you a plug for them, because I'm not sure that they're also available on the main website. And so, once again, taking these and just putting them a little bit closer to the camera, they are transparent. They are clear and they're transparent, but they also have just a lovely swirl of injected plastic in the center that makes it look like somewhat like a clear marble, somewhat like a smoky, just has a smoky effect throughout all of them. And so, well, unlike a quartz, it does actually look like the smoke is inside of the dice. And they also have these very lovely, it has a lovely font on it, just a very close to medieval sans serif type of font. And so that was the D20, of course. I'm showing these in a different order now. This is the D4. And so if I hold the D4 in just the right way, you'll be able to see the transparency in addition to the smoke effect. And I also mentioned that, I much prefer my D4s to be done with the numbers on each corner, as opposed to the numbers just that are simply on the bottom half. So this is the D10. And so if I hold it this way, you can see a few of the swirls that are on that are across from the one on that. And so the lighting from the camera is making the numbers look a little bit lighter than they should be, as they're actually a very deep royal blue on the dice. This is the D6. Okay, this is a D12. Okay, this is the D8. And finally, this is the percentage. The percentage looks really good, I think, in terms of, how well the color is distributed through that one. Alright. So once again, that was the dice set, and this is the calendar. These are both available on Ginny Dye's website, shopping page. Ginny Dye's shopping page is guinnydye.myshopify.com. So I'll post that into chat very quickly. And Ginny Dye, being a social media influencer, has websites just all over the web. We're probably only going to be looking at just a small sample of those by going into this section right here. And so what we're going to be doing is that, since this calendar was sponsored by World Anvil, we should definitely take a look at the World Anvil webpage for Ginny Dye. And so, let me see. Yeah, take this away. And now we're going to be able to see this. And so we're going to see a lot of the characters from the calendar a second time. And so it says, learn more about the various original characters that exist in the world of Ginny Dye videos. Those, of course, are her videos on YouTube. Okay, so here some from what we can see, I can see Nakrasha, I can see Agri, and I can see um, Morelia, but everybody else just kind of seems to be characters that might not be featured in this calendar. So let's take a look at some of the new ones. Okay, Clover Whithorn is a halfling bard with shoulder-length, wavy brown hair and brown eyes. Her whole face is covered with freckles. She dresses extravagantly in bold colors and with lots of jewelry. She carries a lyre harp and can often be heard, filling quiet moments playing it, though her primary for artistic expression is not music but epic poetry. And so that's the first photo of her on this website. The quest Clover speaks in dramatic rhyme, treating every conversation as a performance. However, when she is truly upset or frightened, she drops the pretenses. She is loud and braggadocious, but when things go south, she's a coward and only out for herself. Quest Hook, a dangerous affair. Clover has been attempting to win the heart of Duke Fulvius's handsome son, Kellen. Unfortunately, Kellen is already betrothed to Lady Rodolfo, a noble woman known far and wide for her skill with a blade. Uh, Offended by Clover's brazen overtures, Lady Rodolfo has challenged Clover to a duel. Clover can be found at the bar drinking away her anxiety over the duel, which is set for the following day. It is relatively easy to get her talking about her predicament in the hopes that someone will step in to help her. She will easily confess that she's considering stealing away the night, perhaps to another town where she can make a name for herself. Clover is vaguely nomadic, hanging around her town until she manages to get in trouble with the law, pick a fight with somebody, or find herself unwelcome in the local bars, at which point she packs up and moves on to the next one. She makes her money by a combination of performance and scams, often guilting, tricking, or exaggerating her way into her payment. She desperately wants to be a famous bard, but so far her work hasn't struck anybody as being particularly special. Alright. Look at Nibwin. So that's the photo here. All right. Nimwin Aranethar is a prim, seriously looking high elf with short, wavy black hair. She wears a high neck dress with a formal white cravat, a look which accurately previews her stern, often businesslike demeanor. She has a high, almost whiny voice which softens only when she speaks of poetry. Nimwin is a cleric of the knowledge domain and therefore a scholar, though she dabbles secretly in the domain of death. She conducts her research within a vast library in a large city while she is passingly acquainted with her fellow scholars and librarians. The institution is large enough that she is able to remain fairly secretive about the specifics of her work, a benefit in her view. She is not particularly friendly and is extremely slow to trust. A study of rebirth. All of Nimwin's research is focused on resurrection. She is willing to approach the question of reviving the dead from every angle and has studied divine, arcane, and even necromantic means of healing and reviving the dead. She is interested in both true resurrection and the darker art of raising dead bodies without their souls intact because of her lack of moral distinction between healing and necromancy. Nimwin is aware that her work may ruffle feathers if exposed. As a result, she is very secretive about her research. Years ago, Nimwin found a book of poetry written by a poet named Ayana. This poet, a human woman, lived nearly 200 years ago and died from some wasting disease. Nimwin, through reading Ayana's poetry, has become convinced that the writer is her soulmate, the only person who would truly understand her. This spawned Nimwin's fanatical fascination with rebirth. She now pursues the art of the true resurrection, prepared to attempt grave robbing in order to facilitate her unethical necromantic quest to raise Ayana from her century-old grave so that the two can be together. Okay, and then I was going to look at Edith. Okay. I do love the background in this one, is that you just a lot of pink cherry blossoms. And so you already know that I do have a certain fascination when it comes to cherry blossoms because I put the exact same kind of background in my card collecting cards that I put on to Twitter. Edith Helmina Fairthimble is a gnome cleric of the Heartstring domain. She works out of a temple as a matchmaker, providing her services for free but accepting donations for the temple from satisfied clients. Very soft, yes. Edith is a hopeless romantic, although she spends her days trying to find love for others. Her greatest wish is to find love for herself, however. As the years pass, she's begun to doubt that true love is in the cards for her. Yeah, that's pretty much the extent of this one. The other ones just were a little bit longer. Okay, so Elowin, I believe, is a doctor. Elowin is a half-elf battlefield healer. She heals non-magically and is primarily experienced with triage and emergency medical treatments, such as stitching and binding wounds, setting broken bones, and performing amputations. While others might let years of violence harden them, Eli has remained cheerful and friendly, with an easy sense of humor and a forgiving nature. She recently turned 90, making her middle age for her race. She loves helping people, but is growing weary of the travel and would like to settle down. And so the last one we're going to look at here is Morelia. Morelia is a wood elf who lives in a vine-covered cottage just outside of a small town. Her long curly hair forms a chaotic cloud around her head, on which is perched a green-pointed hat with leaves dripping off the brim. She tucks a wooden spoon for stirring potions into her belt, which is decked with pouches full of herbs and ingredients. Morelia is very friendly and always looks for the best in those around her. She wants to be helpful and is well known in her village for providing small charms and magics to aid the villagers. She is a skilled magic user capable of performing powerful enchantments and experienced with potion making, but often makes mistakes due to her being disorganized, forgetful, and distractible. As a result, her potions may come with unintended side effects, and her charms may not always work as precisely as intended. A furry friend, Morelia shares her cottage with Cremini, a white cat with shocking gold eyes. While he keeps the mice away, he has also been known to cause trouble in the shop, knocking over bottles or eating ingredients. Cremini is very social and loves to get attention from Morelia's customers, but he might act out if he's feeling ignored. A delicate matter. Last spring, a mistake with one of Morelia's batches of love potions caused multiple townspeople to fall in love with her. This is very stressful for Morelia, who shut her doors and hid from them until traveling adventurers were able to procure the key ingredient for the antidote, which is Pixie's tongue ivy. Now Morelia has sworn off love potions and refuses to make and sell them. He's named after a mushroom, and so is Morelia, come to think of it. Yeah. I mean, completely and totally accurate for a wood elf. And so that is Ginny Dye's webpage on World Anvil. So World Anvil was, just cross-promoted along with the calendar. And it looks like a very good website for, creating lore-based writing. So there's a very good chance that I'm going to be looking at it, and I hope I'm going to be able to post content on it soon. I love her little bios. They are so cute. Yeah. I do believe that, she sincerely gives her all when it comes to creating original characters and trying to portray those characters through cosplay, which isn't an easy endeavor, but is I believe that she has brought it up to the level of a fine art. It seems like GeoCities, but for RP. I dig it. Yeah. And so it's very likely that, I might be able to create some monetization pages and, post some lore and some guidebooks based on some of the locales that we've already seen in Tales of the Meowing Portal. That's what I'm planning. That's the majority of what I'm going to be working on in 2021. But I believe That is all of that, and that is all of that. So let's go ahead and let's move over to our continued reading of the Sword Coast Adventurer's Guide. Okay, so we left off at the city of Mirabar last time. Previously, we were talking about Longsaddle, which is a insular town that is mostly guided by an eccentric family of wizards. So, Mirabar. Mirabar is a human city that rests atop dwarven caverns. On the surface, humans dominate the population, with some dwarves mixed in, and a handful of gnomes and halflings. The uppermost level of the undercity is mostly dwarves, with some few humans. The mixing of races is due to the convenience of trade, preference, or skill, just as some few humans like to mine or imbibe strong dwarven drink and work underground. So do a minority of dwarves take to the open sky, doing dock work or even manning or building ships. The lower levels beneath Mirabar are all dwarven, as even the most dwarf-like human can live so deep below the ground for only so long. Almost all of its citizens, regardless of race, honor Moradin and the dwarven gods, making Mirabar a dwarven city in both spirit and ethics, if not entirely by population, much in the way my own silvery moon speaks to elven ideals of natural beauty. Long ago, the great dwarven kingdom of Gargahor stood to the west of Delzoun, delving mines near the river Mirar and finding great, near-endless veins of gems. Like many of the dwarven realms, Garagar fell to marauding orcs, which destroyed the kingdom and its capital city, but couldn't take advantage of the wealth therein. For millennia, the lower city lay empty until some 800 years ago, when Prince Erescus of Amn settled the same spot, creating the city of Mirabar, coincidentally echoing the dwarven bard naming convention used for citadels throughout the north. It was only when dwarves returned to work the mines below that Mirabar began to see its fortunes increase. Mirabar is ruled by its hereditary Marchian, Celion Roram, who issues edicts fed to him by the Council of Sparkling Stones. The council is part of a group of dwarves and some few humans elected to make policy for the city, to determine where the output of Mirabar's mines will be sold. Although the council has long kept Mirabar associated with the Lord's Alliance, it is the Marchian who negotiates with his fellow lords. Thus far, Selin Roram has provided far more capable than his predecessors at making beneficial decisions for the cities, and the council has given him great leeway to speak for Mirabar outside of the walls. His threat to pull out of the alliance following his failure to aid the northern cities against the most recent orc hordes, though considered by some to be an empty gesture, has brought Mirabar more advantageous relationships with Waterdeep and Baldur's Gate, something which has not gone unappreciated by the council. The city's guard, the Axe of Mirabar, exists primarily to deter and prevent sabotage of the mines, without which Mirabar would collapse. The guard also provides swift and capable defense and law enforcement within the city. The wealth of Mirabar is so great that it maintains docks, ships, and fortified harbors on many of the islands in the Sea of Swords, and as such the city is always seeking magical and military support for these defenses. While other cities might use such vast mountains of coin as Mirabar possesses on shows of prosperity, Mirabarians use it for more functional goals, making sure that the city's defenses are new, that its gates close securely when they are moved, that its buildings and walls are strong and secure. Given the recent destruction of Sundabar's surface city at the hand of orc armies, such expenditures are well justified, since no one in Mirabar wishes to see the surface city wiped out. It would simply be bad for business. Mirabar spares no expense in defending its wealth and hires as many mages and adventurers as necessary to clear threats away from roads, investigate sabotage, and otherwise protect its vital trade. With the rise of the Mithril Hall in the last century and now Gauntlgrim, Mirabar fears its place as the armory of the north is at risk. The miners, smelters, and smiths of Mirabar work ever harder to increase their output and improve their craft, while the jewelers and enamelers study ways to incorporate ancient techniques of melding dwarven, human, and elven designs together in their work in the matter of Old Faelorn. Mirabaran, or to some just Miran, dwarves like to cultivate long and wide as opposed to tapered or pointed beards and tight braids of hair growing elsewhere than on the chin, a fashion copied by some of the local humans. They love polished, ever-bright, treated sheets of metal, particularly copper, used as doors or mirror-like wall panel inlays. They often set gems into the pommels and non-working ends of tools and weapons. Mirren dwarves tend to be wealthy, to have personal collections of unusual rare gems, to use seals made of gems carved into signet rings, and to be investors in ventures rather than property up and down the Sword Coast. They are sophisticated and worldly, and they decry the isolationist and xenophobic attitudes of some dwarves. Mirren dwarves demonstrate their own broader attitudes by being the diplomatic traders and power brokers in trade moots and agreements in Fireshare and Neverwinter, and everywhere else they can worm their way into among dwarves and between dwarves and non-dwarves. Everbright. The dwarves were the first to discover the secret of treating their metal with Everbright. The technique has been imitated by other races to varying degrees of success. Armor, weapons, and other metal objects to which Everbright is applied maintain their luster without needing to be polished, and are resistant to natural, and in some cases magical pitting, rusting, and tarnishing. Yeah, I like these dwarves. These are dwarves that play ball. These are dwarves that are part of modern industry. To other dwarves, Mirren are translators and local guides to the people who know the right people in human-dominated cities elsewhere along the Sword Coast and in much of the Heartlands. Most adult Mirren have dealings with a variety of human costers and merchants, taking care to avoid exclusivity or cultivate too narrow a range of business partners and contacts, so they control their own destinies and fortunes. They abhor the thought of humans having the slightest chance of dominating them. The wealth that flows through Mirabar has not only extended the reach and rolling knowledge of all Mirren, it has enabled them to indulge in all sorts of personal hobbies, such as art collections of statuettes and paintings in particular. The private living quarters of most Mirren furniture feature comfortable furniture, painted artwork large and small, statuary and hanging chimes, often metallic but always soft and pleasant, never loud or strident. Gems are plentiful in Mirren families and are used as currency in all manner of personal adornment rather than being hidden away. Semi-precious stones lie in many of the streets of Mirabar, and gorgeous inlays mark important corners and intersections, some so new that one can still smell the jeweler's dust. Still, despite the city's overall wealth, there are rich and relatively poor Mirabarians. Not everyone shares in the coin the city's sales bring in, and wage workers whose income is determined by a day's labor or a month's output can't hope to expect that a well-worded contract by an employer will enrich them in the least. Wealthy merchants and business owners are careful not to show their success ostentatiously. Their clothing might be of richer fabrics, but still in the same styles and colors as the garb of poorer folks. Waiting rooms and front halls in the fortified homes of the rich are just as sparsely furnished as those in poorer homes. Keeping up with the appearance of the relative equality in fortunes is vital, for if anyone in a position to commit a violent act, say a weaponsmith with access to great stores of swords and axes, the alliteration is really, really thick in this chapter, do just how wealthy the wealthiest Mirabarans were, there would very likely be bloodshed before the offended parties were satisfied. Neverwinter. Once again, this is an extremely popular setting for many campaigns in Dungeons & Dragons. A short while ago, Neverwinter was beset by all manner of damage, danger, and gloom. Now the orcs that once menaced the city have moved east to join their brethren in being crushed by the dwarves. The chasm that rent the land has been sealed by powerful magic. The high road has been cleared and rebuilt, and trade has resumed with Waterdeep and the realms to the south. What was the blasted, wounded city of Neverwinter just a decade ago is now an exciting, humming place where folks seem eager to throw off the hardships from which they have emerged and create a new, brighter future for their city. Nearly half a century ago, Mount Hotenau, the nearby volcano that perpetually heats the river that flows into the city, violently erupted, destroying much of Neverwinter, killing thousands, and leaving in its wake a great gaping chasm that split the city. Neverwinter was in ruins, and external influences, from Netheril to Lord the Galt, Neverember of Waterdeep, to the agents of the Hells themselves, sought to exert control over the city. Many folk fought to stem all those dangers, and eventually a measure of peace fell over Neverwinter. The spell plague, Hotnow, liches, etc. Since the Galt Neverember was deposed as the Open Lord of Waterdeep, he has thrown his full attention and effort into the rebuilding of the city from which he claims descent. There's still a little bit more of that map there. Whatever people's opinions are of his claim to Neverwinter's throne, he has proven a capable, inspiring leader over these last few years, and the population has embraced him as Lord Protector. He engineered the sealing of the chasm and the restoration of the high road, and is seeking other ways to repair and improve the city. Even if he can never prove his descent from Lord Nashar Alagandar, the people of Neverwinter have accepted his leadership. My rumored personal dislike of Lord Neverember has nothing to do with my assessment of his leadership. I merely find him an intolerable flirt. Neverember's influence radiates outward from the Protector's enclave, centered at the Hall of Justice. When Tyr restored to life and his worship returning to prominence, the Lord Protector has moved into a modest private villa. The sacrifice and the renewal of Tyr's faith in the previous center of his operations is only further proof to some that Neverember deserves to rule Neverwinter. As yet, Castle Never remains a dangerous ruin, but Neverember has plans to reclaim and rebuild it as a symbol of the city's rejuvenation. The faithful of Ogma have arrived in Neverwinter to restore the House of Knowledge to its former glory, but beyond that, shrines to all manner of gods have been cobbled together in every corner of the city. As the city restores itself, there are likely to be requests for ennoblement and the privilege that it provides, and certainly trading interests will emerge. But Lord Protector Neverember is sure to point out that he is merely a protector, not a king, and so cannot invest or recognize anyone. Guilds may form, but it is sure to be years, if not decades, before any prove strong enough to persevere over their rivals. Interestingly, calls come from the citizenry or the enforcers out of Mintarn to be replaced by respectable local guards who have a personal interest in the defense of Neverwinter. This public sentiment has led to some neighborhoods organizing their own makeshift militias, and the Lord Protector wants to avoid conflict between them and the mercenaries he's hired. As a result, Neverember has slowly been drawing down the number of soldiers from Mintar as the citizens grew up defending the makeshift wall from threats out of the chasm, proved themselves capable of becoming a proper military force. Hello, Queen Vampiress. Thank you very much for tuning into the stream tonight. Both Baldur's Gate and Waterdeep have offered to help train the new guards of Neverwinter, but Lord Neverember prefers the assistance of seasoned adventurers to the ignominy of seeking help from his former city. With the restoration of nearby Gauntlgrim, Neverwinter hopes to have a close ally that it can provide with stout armor and strong weapons. Although the city presently has little to offer, trade activity is rapidly growing in Neverwinter, as word of its rebirth opens it up to shipping from the Sea of Swords, goods from the north, and coin from the south. Adventurers come to Neverwinter seeking work and following rumors of nearby treasures, and often find additional employment, clearing out dangerous corners of the city and escorting the ever more numerous caravans up and down the high road. It is the Lord Protector's hope that with commerce and income both on the rise, the talented craftfolk returning to ply their trades, that Neverwinter will someday again be worthy of its former epithet, the City of Skilled Hands. Opposition to Neverember's authority still exists, but with no unified leadership and no other power in the city in which to appeal, the rebels are slowly turning away from their resistance and towards helping the city rebuild. Many of the Sons of Alagandar, a rebel group that initially opposed Lord Neverember, have begun to volunteer as replacements for the Mintar mercenaries currently patrolling the city. You know you're a good leader when the people who were trying to dethrone you are now part of your volunteer team. If the Sons of Alagandar can be brought to line with his goals, Neverember hopes to use that achievement as a draw for wealthy Waterdaven nobles who have been reluctant to link their fortunes to a failed open lord who is effectively exiled from Waterdeep, to invest in the city and perhaps rebuild some of the noble villas in that district for places of them to stay when they do business. Hiccup. Sorry about that. His entire bloodline is the greatest. Well, assuming that he actually does belong to that bloodline, which is really just a point of debate. With the chasm closed and the wall that separated the rest of the city from its horrors now torn down, a great swath of Neverwinter lies empty with no inhabitants and plentiful chunks of some stone plundered from ruins all across the city. Anyone who is willing to do so can come to this area, claim a portion of land, and build a structure in which to live or work. There aren't yet any guilds for strict trade or construction, and no nobles to be petitioned or placated. Those seeking to create a home or start a business can simply do so, and even those without skills or money can use their hands and backs to provide until they can set up such a place for themselves. Along the river, many of the merchant villas are being claimed and restored by folk who have heard rumors of what Neverwinter once was and might be again. Some have no skills to speak of, and many have no wealth, but all come with a desire to work and enrich themselves in the process. New stores and workshops open the 10-day, and workers without training offer their services as laborers or apprentices. Those that fail move on to other employment, taking advantage of the multitude of opportunities the city now offers. Those with no other options can get to work on dredging or mapping the city's sewers for the Lord Protector, a task made necessary by the cataclysm that created the chasm. Like any city, Neverwinter is now without its drawbacks. Though most folk are willing to work, some steal as a means of making their living and prey upon those who have little to be taken. Food is sometimes scarce, as inns and taverns underestimate the number of guests they will receive, or merchants simply run out of goods to sell. It's likely to be a few years before the city entirely shakes itself of these ills, but for some, the uncertainties of life in Neverwinter are what makes the place exciting. For many traders, in particular those who produce or vend the grains and vegetables needed in the city, it is a vast opportunity to both aid a fledgling power and get quite rich in doing so. And so, this is the overhead map of Neverwinter. The Shard of Night, the Tower District, and this is the cavern, the chasm. It's just effectively sending river water throughout the dearth of what was once a united cityscape. Alright. Silvery Moon. Long a powerful and influential member of the Lord's Alliance, and for its entire existence the Silver Marshes of Lurar. Silvery Moon is what many cities aspire to be, a quiet, peaceful realm where many races live together for common knowledge, celebration, and defense. The city is peopled primarily by the good races, humans, dwarves, gnomes, elves, halflings, and half-elves, but no being is turned away from Silvery Moon because of its race, though a drow or orc proving true to one's blood is sure to be punished in full for transgressing against the peace of the city. I will make no secret of my love for my home in the following summary, but I will endeavor to be as even-handed as I can be in describing it. The Gem of the North is a stunning place of sweeping curves, soaring towers, and structures built into the living trees. To many elves, the city is a reminder of the ancient elven cities of old. Some call it the Mithranor of the earth. Even nowadays, after the restoration and subsequent fall of that fabled city, even where stone is employed in construction, ivy and other living plants grow through, over, or around such structural elements, giving most of the city a green cast. Despite its arboreal architecture, Silvery Moon is very much civilized, boasting the schools of music and magic, a great library, bardic instruction, and temples or shrines to Malachi, Agma, Sylvanas, Sune, Timora, and Mystara. Knowledge, both the acquisition of it and the freedom that comes from diligent study, is a real treasure of Silvery Moon, as much as magic or wealth could ever be. I don't think anybody could fault you for your bias. It seems well placed. Well, that isn't me personally. That's the narrator of all of this, whose name has completely escaped me after doing this much reading. Oh well. While it's easy and pleasing enough to get lost among the trees of the city, anyone who comes close to the River Rarin is awed by the vision of the Moon Bridge, the great arch of silvery force that spans the water. Even for those native to the city, is a powerful and moving sight, and some claim to see the goddess Lurur, for whom the city is named, dancing above the moats of the bridge when no one else is watching. Given its beauty, a visit to Silvery Moon is among the most memorable experiences most non-Silverian might have. Even amongst those that regularly fight monsters or handle magic, Silvery Moon is a place of quiet, contemplative beauty, splendid opportunities for learning, and respite from the harsher realities of the North. Ha ha ha, cute. Folks seeking knowledge that has been lost or hidden often come to Silvery Moon, seeking a means to find it, whether by studying in the vault of the sages or pursuing the map house for the location of a lost city or a grove. These are but two of the many buildings and houses of learning in the conclave of Silvery Moon, the great center of knowledge and wisdom that forms much of the city's southern part. If a map, a book, or spell exists anywhere in the Faerun, knowledge of it likely exists here, even if only a mere mention in a tome or a recollection of one of the city's great sages. Candlekeep might be the greatest assembly of written knowledge anywhere in the world, but in the end, that place represents accumulation for its own sake. Silvery Moon is where study and wisdom are honored. If your charge is to translate an ancient tome in the lost language, to learn the proper intonation of a complex song, or to better understand the cryptic writings of a long-dead sage, there is no better place to seek than Silvery Moon. It is an easy thing to come to Silvery Moon seeking knowledge of one subject and find themselves so enraptured by the study that it takes a lifetime to accomplish, or to realize that it was the study, rather than the sought-after fact, that one truly desired. Although tutors and sages in every field can be found in Silvery Moon, rarely is interaction with one so simple as to ask a question and be provided an answer. Learning to cast a particular spell, to find an ancient ruin, or understand a specific secret might involve undergoing months of instruction to prove a teacher that the knowledge imparted is being entrusted to a deserving person. In the height of the city is the High Palace, the capital of the city, and of the fallen state of Lorar. Lord Methromar Arasume lives in this high, slender-spired structure. The merlins of its battlements are carved to resemble unicorn heads. The soldiers of the High Guard, clad in shining silver plate, protect the residence and seat of power, and keep out those that don't have business within. Silvery Moon has long been led by a high mage. One of the longest ruling and certainly the most influential of these, Alistriel Silverhand, stepped down more than 100 years ago to become the High Lady of Lorar, and is succeeded by Taern Hornblade. Though he has ruled wisely over the last century, Taern recently relinquished the city's leadership to... that's a great time to lose a line. Who did he lose it? To lose the leadership. Taern recently relinquished the city's leadership to High Marshal Methromar Arasume, Alistriel's half-elf son, and the leader of Silvery Moon's armed forces. Taern still speaks for the city of Methromar's behalf at the meetings of the Lord's Alliance, as the new ruler is far too blunt and impatient to suit the other lords of the compact. Silvery Moon is defended by several forces. First are the Knights in Silver, the shining armored warriors that patrol the city and the nearby lands. Officers of the Knights are well trained in tactics and military history, and have high opinions of their own abilities and those of their comrades, opinions that are very often borne out. They are bolstered by the Spell Guard, a cadre of powerful wizards and sorcerers that train in battle magic. Last is the city's own Mythal, the great field of magical force that prevents the inhabitants of the city from engaging in all manner of spellcasting. In particular, spells that summon flame, conjure creatures, or permit teleportation fail when their target is within the bounds of the mithril. Should a foe try to traverse the moon bridge, the span can be willed by the city's rulers and certain others specifically attuned to the mithril out of existence, dropping attacks into the nearby river. No city's prestige was harmed more than Silvery Moon's by the recent war and the subsequent dismantling of the Silver Marches. Though they tried to bolster the nearby cities, the Silverin were accused of providing insufficient and incompetent support to the Cinnabar, the surface population of which was entirely wiped out. In the end, all the dwarven states stepped away from Lorimar, and without the support of these kingdoms or the leadership that Alistrel provided at its founding, the Confederacy collapsed. Taern Hornblade isn't as powerful a voice in the Lord's Alliance as Alistriel was, either, in part because his affection and respect for the former High Lady has been extended in large part to her sister Lyral, who is now the Open Lord of Waterdeep. Despite reports of her death decades ago, rumors have recently reached the city that High Lady Alistrel is in fact alive and active in the southern lands. Seemingly, she has contacted neither her son or her former comrade Taern Hornblade Though, given how widely known Terran's hopeless love for the High Lady was, and the long years he took to overcome his grief, it is not certain how he will react upon hearing proof of her survival. Silvery Moon has nonetheless long been known as a safe haven for harpers of the North, because the city doesn't see the aims of the Alliance as conflicting with those who harp, while other cities' rulers might see the presence of the harpers as a threat to their authority. Silver Moon desires an end to tyranny as fervently as the harpers do, and thus the greater good is served. At the same time, some Silverin believe that the city's tolerance of certain other members of the Alliance, some from Mirabar, others from Baldur's Gate, is somewhat naive. Okay. Waterdeep. I don't even need to say it this time, but yeah, this is probably one of the more popular settings in all of Dungeons & Dragons. Rising from the shores of its deep harbor to ring the great mountains standing tall out of the sea of swords is Waterdeep, the city of splendors and the crown of the north. To all of Faerun, this great metropolis stands as a pinnacle of what made a great city might be in wealth, influence, and stability. Here the citizens work, the nobles sneer, and the great mass lords plot and scheme, all while merchants dance between them to collect their coins and continue profiting as best they can. Waterdeep shops and merchants offer goods of every sort from every corner of Toril, and even the rarest of items can be procured, given sufficient coin and patience. Adventurers lacking one or the other can easily find all manner of employment, from the simple of escorting of caravans to guarding nobility to investigating a ruin or a rumor of monsters anywhere in the north. Though it has stood for hundreds of years, Waterdeep is only now returning to its status of a century and a half ago. The recent disruptions began when the gods walked the realms and slew each other before the eyes of mortals, until they walked back into their divine domains through the very streets of Waterdeep itself. I guess people are still capable of remembering that. Decades later, more deities began dying off, magic failed, and all manner of catastrophes started, altering the very nature of the city. Lord Neverember wasted the city's navy and then, instead of rebuilding it, hired sailors out of Mintem and profited from the endeavor. Now the City of Splendors is on the mend. The harbor has been cleared of the broken ships that made up the former district of Mistshore, and Waterdeep again has its own navy. The city's guard, its army, its watch, the police force, the navy, and its famous Griffin cavalry are all being reformed. But all of that might be a matter of years in the settling. A plague chased most residents out of the Warrens and the Downshadow, and living or digging below the city's surface has been deemed illegal except by those authorized by the lords to do so. Somehow even the air seems fresher. In the words of one wise moon elf matron, whose status as my aunt has positively no bearing on her wisdom, said, "Waterdeep is back to where it was when I was a lass." Perhaps most surprising of the newest developments is the return of Laeral Silverhand to Waterdeep. Long thought dead, she re-emerged only recently and swiftly rallied the masked lords to support her supplanting of the Galt Neverember as the open lord of Waterdeep. Very few remember Lady Laeral from her previous time in the city, but those elves who have been living in there for the last century claim she is more reserved than she once was. The new open lord doesn't speak of her family. Any mention of her children, her late husband, the fabled Blackstaff, Kelvin Aronson, or any of her famed sisters is cause for her to cut short whatever conversation may be in progress at the time. Her relationship with the current Blackstaff, Bahira Shafar, is cordial, but the two are seldom seen in one-on-one conversation, and most think Lady Laeral has little to learn from a mage who isn't nearly her equal. As always, the Open Lord is selected and supported by several masked lords who bear mask robes and amulets to disguise themselves when publicly sitting in Judgment or Council, and who make policies for Waterdeep. Oh, hello, Ferret Magic. Everybody say hi to Ferret Magic. Ferret Magic is a great ferret wizard and VTuber who does variety streams. Let me give a shout out. Let's see if Ferret Magic might have a clip. Let's see. The sound might be a little bit lower on it. Probably a little bit lower than the music that I'm currently playing. Interesting looking game, though. It looks like it was just right at the turn of 64-bit graphics. Or actually just might be a new indie game in the same way. Alright, so where was I? Oh, yes. Every Waterdaven is suspicious as to whether this or that influential citizen is or is not a lord of the city, and some are willing to make their beliefs public, but few are confronted in such a way have ever claimed to be a lord, and none of those have also produced proof of that assertion. Yeah, it came out not long ago. That might be one that's worth looking up. Not hitting at all are the other lords of the city, the nobles of Waterdeep, whose high-nosed behavior and heavy-handed spending establish fashion in the city, which in turn creates trends all across the north for clothing, weaponry, favorite trinkets, music, and any other preference that can be changed at a whim by those with enough coin to afford the expense. More than 75 noble families call Waterdeep home, representing between them all manner of business interests, rivalries, and internal strife. Being a noble carries with it a great deal of advantage. Operating from one's place at the head of the economic and social hierarchy, a noble can easily lift a mediocre craftsperson out of obscurity, dash the hopes of a wealthy merchant of ever securing another contract within the city, or provide the blacking an ambitious adventuring band needs to find fame and great wealth. The only true competition nobles face is from one another. Such rivalries are the source of much gossip and intrigue, as the nobles of Waterdeep always try to maintain at least a veneer of civility in their squabbles. Although they seldom agree on much, one matter that all the noble houses see the same way is that their status should not be tainted by newcomers, and certainly not by anyone so bright-coined as to purchase one's way into a noble title. When, during Lord Neverember's tenure, it became legal for impoverished houses to sell their titles, and thus allow others to become noble, many leaders of the old blood houses were apoplectic, particularly after some purchasers lost all their coin and sold their titles again within a season or two. Lord Laeral's silver hand has, to the relief of those leaders, seen the folly of this decision, and gathered enough support among the lords of Waterdeep to not only reverse it, but restore titles and lands to noble families who lost them through folly. The change has won her much support among the nobles. Now Zents, Anthayans, and Balderulian merchants have coin enough to buy property within the city if they choose, but that is no reason to avoid them with noble titles and legal rights instead of merely a mansion for doing so. Okay. The wards of Waterdeep. Waterdeep has long been divided into several large regions called wards. To locals, these are essential to Waterdeep, but outsiders often lose track of which ward they're in or what a ward's name signifies. The names of the wards suggest the contents of the buildings and the character of the activity in each one, but no laws exist that restrict a given activity or class of people to any specific ward. Castle Ward, as the name indicates, Castle Ward contains Castle Waterdeep, Peregrine's Palace, and many other public buildings of the city. This ward is home to mainly the wealthy or influential who can't count themselves among the nobility. The Dock Ward. Most of the city's harbor is located in the Dock Ward, as are the businesses and warehouses that depend on the city's newly restored harbor. It's a crowded neighborhood of many winding streets where folk are comfortable of making deals that might in other places provoke the displeasure of the law. And another hiccup. Field War. Of a relatively recent vintage, the Field Ward stands between the inner and outer north walls of the city, an area formerly used as a caravan grounds. This ward grew up in a messy, unregulated fashion and is home to many of the poorest residents of the city. The North Ward, home to many Home to many noble villas, townhouses, and a great many inns, the North Ward is a neighborhood of the respectively wealthy. The Sea Ward, those whose fortunes on the rise build their homes in the Sea Ward, and they join many long-established noble families in residence. This area in the northwest of the city is home to much of the city's wealth. The location of the grandest villas of the city's noble families, other than the ones that are in the North Ward. Southern Ward, stables, warehouses, and shops related to overland trade dominate the Southern Ward. Most residents are hard-working folk that load and unload caravan carts and otherwise perform low-paying work. Trades War, a narrow slice of land between the castle and the city of the dead, and the only place in Waterdeep where it is legal to bury the deceased. It is used by many citizens as a public park during the day, a lovely green space of pretty mausoleums and grand statues in which to escape the city's hustle and bustle. Nobody has any qualms about having a picnic in the cemetery in the city of the dead. And Undercliff, while not considered many to be a ward of the city, the little villages and many farms that sprawl across the land east of the city were lawfully incorporated into Waterdeep when they moved a barracks and a training facility into the area. And Yartar. So this is the last of the villages of the Lord's Alliance. Shortly afterwards, we're going to be going into the Dwarf Holes of the North. Situated in the fork where the rivers Suburban and Desserin join near the Evermore Way, Yartar is a fortified town that, were if not for its own petty internal squabbles, might wield more influence among its fellows in the north. Currently, it's most remarkable for its barge-building operation, and that industry's importance to the commerce of other settlements and in its annual affairs. Each summer, except in the years when the Shield Meet occurs, a vast hiring fair is held in Yartar, during which all sorts of undesirable folk gather north of the town looking for work as guards, miners, farmhands, guides, or other unskilled laborers. For the most part, those who attend this fair are brutes, bandits, freeholders whose lands can no longer sustain them, or Earthguard who wish to be among the civilized folk for a short time. But occasionally a strong hand or a skilled warrior can be culled from the bunch. While this event is going on, Yartar is overrun with visitors who would rather not welcome, who steal goods, sell wares in the street, sometimes those they have just stolen, meet unscrupulous contacts to hand off coin, information, or purloined items, and engage in the occasional spell duel. It's quite common for a new adventuring company to come into being at one of these fairs, when those who stand out from the crowd because they have legitimate skills to sell gravitate towards one another and decide to form a group. In those years when Shield Meet falls, the town is instead treated to a great festival on that day, sponsored mainly by the local temple to Tamora, the Happy Hall of Fortuitous Happenstance. The Shield Meet Festival features a number of games of chance, skill, and bravery, from dice and darts to drunken running to wrestling and other physical contests. Occasionally, the Timorian priests use this festival to identify adventurers to whom the goddess has called to a particular task, selected for a blessing, or otherwise marked for some undetermined destiny. Whether during the Herring Fair or the Shield Meet Festival, each summer at least has one adventuring band seems to get its start in Yartar. Most fall into obscurity, but the Smiling Company, a still active portion of a larger band of warriors who gathered in Yartar nearly a decade ago, still enjoys moderate success and makes annual contributions to the Happy Hall. Yartar is ruled by a water baron who is elected by life. The current water baron is Nestra Ruthiel, a hot-tempered woman who is wickedly calculating. Though she is free with her words and her insults, she seldom takes action against rivals unless she is sure such can be done to the most efficiently painful effort. During my last visit to Yartar, accusations arose against the water baron that she had murdered a man, Caladrod Parlier, who was later revealed to have been her lover. His body was found in the river with a soaked remnant of what appeared to be Nestra Ruthiel's favorite cloak. That she loudly and publicly argued with Palier's wife, Tiarsh, shortly before the accusations came to life, did little to help her reputation or the impressions of her innocence. Scary lady indeed. When she was finally cleared of the charges, Water Baron Ruthiel made it clear that she didn't wish to speak of the matter again, and she would ensure that anyone who brought it up in official dealings would be quite unhappy with the results. Though there are whispers, It has not been mentioned in her presence since some blame the murder on the hand of Yartar, the local thieves guild, but I believe that Caladrod was killed and the Water Baron was implicated in order to free up the post for one of her rivals within the city. It is conflicts and schemes such as this that keep Yartar from gaining prominence in the north. If a town can overcome its internal problems, takes advantage of what its fellows in the Lord's Alliance can offer, and find a way to reap greater profit from its position among major trade routes, where it stands as the gateway to the settlements of the northeast, Yartar might soon grow in size, wealth, and influence. Physical growth would require clearing terrain for further settlement, and building another encircling wall to protect settlers, and additional guards hired to protect those who do the work. With its location near two great rivers and its proximity to the third, the Laughing Flow, forming a trio the locals creatively call the Three Rivers, Yartar is a fishing town, and its tables have fish as fare at every meal. Fresh crabs, eels, and other river life are available both to eat and purchase, and serve as primary means of income for the fisherfolk of the town. The other major industry of Yartar is barge building. Most of the region's river barges are built, or at least begin their service in Yartar, and the works of the town's barge rights famous all up and down the Desirain and its tributaries. It is the importance of Yartar's barges to the commerce of the north that earned the town a place in the Lord's Alliance, to ensure that Yartar doesn't fall into enemies and cause upheaval in the trade network along the river. What can't be transported to or from Yartar by barge comes and goes by caravan instead, and the town's location makes it a key stop for most caravans passing between Waterdeep and Silvery Moon. In Yartar, a caravan can arrange for swift repair, replacements of wagon wheels, carts, or full wagons, or the replenishment of tack and other accessories. Because Yartar has so few industries and fewer close neighbors, its merchants are often in direct competition with one another, and have neither the resources to seek new customers nor the space or funds to explore new trades. As a result, a good deal of the gossip, thievery, and assault in Yartar has its roots one merchant trying to get the upper hand on arrival, either through the damage of goods, intimidation of workers, or the theft of patrons and customers. To curb and control rowdiness, the Water Baron employs the Shields of Yartar, a mounted force of guards who police the town, keep order, and chase off the Uthgart raids that occasionally menace the lands nearby. The shields are housed in the Shield Tower, a fortified structure on the west bank of the Subrin, whose outer wall has frequently been torn down and rebuilt. It is rumored that the guardian skeletons rise when the unauthorized folk tread the ground between the walls, but no one has tested the area to see if its magic still functions. Even if it doesn't, more than 100 angry warriors charging out of the tower at trespassers is enough danger to scare people out of pursuing the idea. A fortified bridge connects the banks between the tower and the town proper. More impressive than either the shields or the shield tower is the Water Baron's barge. The massive vessel can carry 200 soldiers or 75 shields of Yartar, with their horses. Its sides above the waterline are armored with iron. Beside its walls there stand multiple crossbow contraptions, each able to fire a dozen bolts at once. When brought to bear against a force on the riverbank, the shields loose 2 volleys against their enemies, then bring the barge ashore and charge. No raiders have stood firm against such an assault. In the center of town is the Water Baron Hall, a grand structure that is both the ruler's home and a location where she hears audiences. Feasts are often held there, though more often the hall sees activity in its side rooms, where merchants dealing in large quantities of goods or making deals and proposals that affect the entire community can meet in comfort. The Dwarf Holes of the North. A quote from Doron Wormville to the envoy of the Marchand of Mirabar. Who am I, son? I've got hairs on my back longer than that little beard of yours. I have fought with Emerus to retake Felbar, and marched with every dwarf king of the north to win back Guntelgrim, lost half of my foot to an orc's blade, and slew every damned one that got in the way of my marching home. If I want to sit and enjoy my old age now that we finally drove the orcs back, I'll do just that, and courtesy be damned. I've earned my rest. Your little lordling don't like it. Let him come and tell me himself. I'm not getting up until I finish my ale. The history of the dwarves in the north is a long and violent one, dating back more than 6 millennia. Before there was a standing stone in the Dale lands, or a Waterdeep, or a Mithranor, there was the brief, in dwarven terms, Gloria of Besselmer, and the realms of Hudenor and Garagar. Ruins now, to be sure, but these kingdoms lasted longer than almost any living realm of humans, even if their works have been forgotten by humans and dwarves alike. The greatest and most recent of these dwarven realms was Delzun, also called the North Kingdom. It stretched from the western edge of what was then the Narrow Sea, later the great desert of Arnok, west almost to present-day Silvery Moon, and from the Ice Mountains to the Nether Mountains. Citadels, Adbar, and Felbar were fortresses of the Delzun, and Mirabar, Mithril Hall, and Cinnabar all owe their existence to that ancient kingdom or its descendants. Fable the Gontal Grim, said to be touched by the presence of Mornim himself, was built by Delzun's dwarves, first as a mine, then and as a city. It was the dwarves of Delzun who built Ironmaster too, and all the great mines and renowned forges of the north reside in the halls of the dwarves. Now, when the shield dwarves invoke the name of Delzun, they are calling upon the glory of all of their past accomplishments, every feat of architectural mastery, every fine blade or crushing warhammer forged, every kingdom and battle won or lost in defense of their people and the folk around them. The name is as much a battle cry and a badge of honor as it is a call to history. For although every dwarven settlement now has its own masters, kings, and queens, they all respect the memory of the great hammer of Delzun and the glorious kingdom that it represented. The details in this section are drawn from the extensive teachings of Dorn Rorville, a long-bearded dwarf elder who is a retired veteran of the Long Iron Guard of Citadel Adbar and the Citadel Guards of Feldbar. Dorn fought in the Orc Wars of both this and the last century, and helped free Citadel Feldbar twice, and Galtagrim before he put down his warhammer a few years ago and began to chronicle his experience for the benefit of younger dwarves seeking to know more about their heritage and about the world of the day from their proper perspective. Citadel Adbar. In the extreme north of Faerun, near the Cold Wood, lie the Ice Mountains. There in the bitter cold there stands the eternal fortress of Citadel Adbar, the last great remnant of the North Kingdom, and the glory of the fallen Delzun. For nearly 18 centuries, Adbar has stood amongst every threat from every foe, and stood fast the great pride of its residents and our people throughout the region. From the surface, Citadel Adbar looks less like a castle or a human city than a mountain carved to suit the purposes of the dwarves who live there. The two great towers that stand uppermost are ringed with vicious dragon spikes to keep large creatures from landing to attack the structures directly. The great chimney of the city's central foundry stands between them, belching smoke like a volcano about to erupt. Ringing the citadel is a host of platforms, battlements, and arrow slits from where the defenders can fire crossbows at anyone foolish enough to attack the city. For centuries, Adbar has stood as a living monument of the North Kingdom. Already the main fortress of Delzun, when that empire fell, it only grew in importance to the dwarves of the region, as other settlements were overrun by orcs, assailed by goblins, or simply disappeared. An orc horde attempting to take Citadel Adbar might rage against its walls, but to little effect until the great unyielding granite became the anvil against which they were smashed. The great drawbridge allowed none to pass except welcome guests, and as such, guests were few indeed. Standing unconquered, it was the bastion of dwarven hope, glory, and trade. But now, for the first time in memory, my fellow Adbarons seem truly frightened at the prospect of opening the citadel to any outsiders. Perhaps they are reacting to the recent losses of war, or the lack of leadership shown by our new king, or the mere war weariness. But for whatever reason, Adbar's gates are even harder to move with soft words than they have been in the past, and there are fewer traders coming out of the city nowadays. The recent orc wars cost the kingdom dearly, both in warriors and in leadership. In a short time, our long-ruling King Harbram died. His unprepared twin sons shared the rule until the elder, Bram, was himself killed by a dragon, leaving young King Harnath with the rule of the ancient citadel. Queen Vampiress is saying good night. Good night, Queen Vampiress. Thank you very much for tuning into the stream. What followed was a great bleeding of the realm. Much was required to break the north out of the great siege, as the many arrows orcs held it under. There are also whispers that King Harnath led its knights of the mithril shield out into the field to vent his rage and grief on the orcs in ill-advised assaults, winnowing down the once great knights to fewer than 24. The Iron God Adbar's army appears as strong as it ever did, but given the extent of the losses against the orcs, it would be little surprise if their newer recruits were more smiths than warriors, serving their realm out of a sense of duty rather than a desire for battle. I served in the guard for a century, but I have yet to test the newcomers to see what they are made of. If you are fortunate enough to be granted entry to Adbar, be wary of walking around on your own. Within the citadel are traps, deadfalls, and other hazards in various places, waiting for someone to approach a protected location incorrectly. A guide, if you can find one, is necessary for newcomers to get around safely. Beneath the citadel proper, miles of dwarf-sized caverns form a confusing maze that frustrates most non-dwarf visitors. These tunnels are what remain of the early mining efforts inside of the mountain. Below them lie the great ore mines of today, constantly being worked by crews of engineers and laborers. By law, the mines are forbidden to visitors, even non-Adbaran dwarves, except in times of great emergency. So, given the impregnable nature of the forest, no one not of Adbar has been privileged enough to witness what occurs down below. The citadel's great wheel, a most impressive sight, even to a dwarf, is an ever-turning water wheel that provides power to keep Adbar's foundries, mines, and other operations working at all times. Near the wheel is the Hall of Morden's Forge, a place of worship that reminds every dwarf of the soul forager's strength and enduring protection. One can't help but feel safe in its presence, and a true dwarf is home in the warmth of Morden's shadow. Given the current state of the surface lands in the Citadel, it's no surprise that Adbaran are even more suspicious than usual of caravans and visitors that approach the city by means of an underground route. One such road arrives from the west, connecting Adbar to Mithril Hall and Mirabar through the ancient tunnels of Old Delzoun. Another tunnel leads south from Adbar to meet the low road, which connects the ruins of Ascor in the east to Citadel Felbar in the west. No matter where they come from, all roads leading to Adbar converge so that all travelers must confront the great pair of iron doors known as the Caravan Door. Like the rest of Citadel Adbar, this gate has never been breached. Mention the idea of it happening to an Adbaran dwarf if you're looking to get a laugh. Citadel Felbar. Among the eldest and grandest of the Delzon holds, Felbar was built more than 3,000 years ago, a span of time beyond the ability of younger races to comprehend. With great wealth obtained through profitable trade with Nethril and some of the older human settlements in the north, the dwarves forged themselves a mighty fortress. Like most dwarven settlements, Felbar was built around mining. With the fall of Nethril, the reduction of trade among the low road, and signs that the mines beneath the city were reaching the end of their usefulness, the Felbaran abandoned the citadel after nearly 2 millennium, wherein a force out of Silvery Moon occupied the fortress shortly thereafter. Within a half of a century, the orcs had come to realize the weakness of the much smaller garrison, and Felbar was taken by the savages following a 4-month siege. The orcs gave their place a tribal name, and the Citadel of Many Arrows stood as a fortress for orcs for more than 300 years. The recent story of Citadel Felbar is a story of my fallen friend, King Emrys Warcrown. In 1367 DR, Emrys led a force of dwarves to seize on the advantage when, to our surprise and delight, another orc horde assaulted the orcs inside the Citadel of Many Arrows. Biding this time until the invaders broke down the gates, Emrys vanquished both tribes of orcs and reclaimed the citadel for the dwarves. After a first brutal winter, Citadel Felbar was restored. Its forges were relit, and the sound of dwarven hammers began ringing through its halls once again. It was a proud time when we were welcomed the following summer with Felbar back in dwarven hands. In the most recent war, the orcs again took Citadel Felbar, but with the help of King Bruenor Battlehammer and an allegiance of dwarves across the north, King Emrys again retook Felbar, slaying every orc that managed to enter the city and the tunnels below. The grateful king and his loyal warriors then agreed to accompany Brennar to Gauntlgrim, and are there aided him in reclaiming that ancient city as well. But Emrys was mortally wounded in the effort. Brennar honored King Emrys by naming him the second king of the restored Gauntlgrim, after King Conrad was granted the honor of the first kingship posthumously. But for most fell-baron dwarves, this honor is an empty comfort because their beloved hero king has been taken away from them. Now ruling Citadel Felbar are King Emrys' distant kin, King Morin and Queen Tithmel, who are recently married in a union designed to join separate claims to the throne into a single family. Tithmel's claim to the throne is the stronger by a small degree of kinship, but Morin is a quieter, more thoughtful ruler. Queen Tithmel has ever been a warrior, and some fell baron are afraid she may run headlong into the wrong battle before the couple can provide the realm with an heir. And so they hope that King Morin's softer influences will help her to temper her impetuous nature and keep the city strong through the times following the most recent conflicts. Although the two monarchs share the rule of the city and speak with absolute authority, their citizens are wise to learn what both have to say before deciding how to act on a royal edict. Most humans know Citadel Felbar from a distance. They see only a great raised road winding through a vale of broken rock, brooded over by two barbicans known as the Hammer and the Anvil. Two other fortifications loom higher still over the road, embedded in the nearby cliffs, and built atop them. These are the North Vigil and the South Vigil. Far beyond them, the massive ruined gate stands at the end of the road to give entrance to the Felbar, but visitors rarely pass through it. Like most dwarven cities, Felbar exists almost entirely underground. However, since it has been invaded by orcs more than once, no accurate maps of the city's full interior are known to exist, preventing the would-be attackers from gaining their information. Dwarves, even those visiting from other realms throughout the connections within the Low Road, have little trouble finding their way around, but humans, especially those who can't read Dwarvish or short-handed runes carved throughout the city, have a far more difficult time. Following the war, most Fellbaron applauded the dissolution of the Silver Marches. In this time of greatest need, no races other than dwarves moved even the slightest to aid Citadel Felbar, when more assistance and better coordination might have prevented not only that citadel's fall, but Sundabar's as well. Felbaran merchants remain willing to trade with the cities of the north and will aid other dwarven kingdoms when necessary, but it is doubtful that Queen Tithmel will even consider an alliance with humans like the one that created Loror, even if King Morin might. Gauntlgrim. Gauntlgrim has a complex and contradictory history, the gist of it depending on who's doing the telling. Humans have one story of what they know from recent years, but for us dwarves, Gauntlgrim is an ancient place. First dwelled as a mine in the earliest days of Old Elzun. All sorts of myths persist about the great mithril doors of the city, but at its start, Gauntlgrim was simply a mine. When they delved too deeply, the dwarves there discovered the presence of a great being of flame, sealed the mines, and left. Only later, when the humans begged the Delzorn dwarves to build one, was there ever a city in Gauntlgrim. It arose because this time the dwarves succeeded in harnessing the primal power of fire in their depths, thus creating the great forge that made the city possible, or so the stories go. Despite all the quests undertaken by adventurers in the century, no one ever truly found the ancient city until the ghosts of Gauntlgrim's former denizens began calling to living dwarves to seek out the city. Digging too deep in the mine? Great. Being a flame? Sounds familiar. A great amount of these myths can sometimes just be copied from other civilizations, but I think this is slightly more of a case of history repeating itself. Shortly thereafter, the Orc Wars began anew, and nearly every dwarf's attention turned back to the existing dwarf holes and the dangers those places now faced. Gradually, as the orcs were pushed back and the dwarven cities secured anew, those delvers began to recall their promises to their ancestors. Further, when the war ended, Queen Bernard Battlehammer of Mithril Hall promised to lead the dwarves to Gauntlgrim and reclaim it for the dwarves of the north. It took fierce fighting to drive out the creatures that had claimed the city from below, and no one is quite sure who or what, aside from the drow, had tried to occupy Gauntlgrim. But in the end, the dwarven armies prevailed and Bernard claimed the victory. King Emrys Warcrown of Citadel Felbar was gravely wounded, and Bernard claimed him the second king of Gauntlgrim before his death. When dear Emrys passed on, Bernard assumed the role of Gauntlgrim once again, abdicating the leadership in the Mithril Hall. Look. I went a little bit too far over the circle in that one. There are some that think that King Bernard has designs on a great restored temple of Delzun, with the dwarves of all the north from Ironmaster to Adbar and Cinnabar swearing him fealty. Others fear that he will punish those settlements that didn't contribute warriors to the cause to retake Gauntlgrim. But those folk don't know the returned king very well. If he wants a reborn Delzun, may Morden and his children grant him the wisdom to do it well, and the fortitude to see it through. It's a throne that I wouldn't wish on anyone. The rise of a dwarven city so close to the coastal powers of Neverwinter and Waterdeep brings about its own special opportunities and concerns. Surely, once they get their forges going properly, the dwarves will sell armor and weapons similar to the excellent pieces they formed in eastern cities of Old Delzun, and this merchandise may lessen the demand for goods for more distant dwarven settlements. In particular, Cinnabar is worried that its weapons will no longer be sought after along the Sword Coast and is looking southward for new markets in Eltergard and elsewhere. Beyond the great mithril doors of the city lies the great Iron Tabernacle, the holy center of Gauntlgrim, which the priests of all the Morden summon are meticulously restoring in order to honor the gods. Every portion of the city has a road or a passageway that eventually leads back to the site, a vast cavern of crisscrossing walkways and great stairs. In its lowest levels, the tabernacle holds the resting places of countless of Gauntlgrim's dead. Scholars have set about cataloging the lineages recorded here to give King Bernard a more complete picture of the bloodlines of the city and to determine whether any of the living clans have narrations or honored dead among those interred. Deeper still is the great forge of Gauntlgrim, where in times the past hammers rang off adamantine anvils to forge wonders from every conceivable type of metal. Now the forge must be brought back to life again, and soon the priests and spellcasters of the city are working on a means of contact containing the great heat emanating from the fiery pit where the being of pure flame is contained, to harness the unquenchable fire as the dwellers of old once did. I think that you are right to be concerned, Evan. The Canticle of Gauntlgrim. Passed down by dwarves throughout the north for centuries, the Canticle of Gauntlgrim is now something of an anthem for the reclaimed city. It is often sung on the road by dwarven travelers on their way to make a life in Buenos Aires. So, for the first time on the show, I believe that we have pure prose. So let's get right to it. Silver halls and mithril doors, stone walls to seal the cavern. Grander sights than e'er before in smithy, mine, and tavern. Toil hard in endless night, in toast, oh lift your flagon. Well, ye'll need the drink to keep the right at forge that bakes the dragon. Come Delzun, come one and all, rush to grab your kin, and tell them that their home waits in grandest Gauntlgrim. Thank you. Thank you. Ironmaster. Okay, so this is very likely going to be the last article that we can do tonight. I've never set foot in Ironmaster myself, but I fought beside Storn Skuldark, a young warrior priest of Clandegan who was taking a sort of vacation from it in order to help reclaim Gauntlgrim. His description of life in Ironmaster confirmed much of what I've heard of the place, and so what I relate to you now is truth as solid as Moradin's anvil. The dwarves of Ironmaster don't want you in there, and they want little from the wider world that their traders can't bring back for them. Approaches to the vale in which their city lies are clearly marked with a symbol of Ironmaster, an anvil on top of a diamond. Such a mark is your only warning, and those ignorant of its meaning court death at the hands of dwarf patrols that will attack any interloper. Some innocents have been spared and turned back, but no one should rely on the mercy of a dwarf of Ironmaster. If you were to pass beyond the borders and into Ironmaster itself, you would behold one of the wonders of the world. The great Shangar River passes through a deep canyon of rock and ice in a series of cascades and waterfalls, throwing up freezing forth as it bashes across massive spires of rock that rise from the riverbed. Ironmaster is built in these spires and into the walls of the canyon, the tunnels, and the towers strung together by high bridges and cliffside walkways. To hear Storn talk of the place, you would think that the dwarves scrabbling about such heights through the open air was as normal as badgers in a burrow. But I wouldn't mind saying it as I set aside my ale after he spoke of it. Ironmaster owes his existence to the restlessness of Eilistrog's star, who left the Citadel Adbar long ago, with nearly a quarter of the population of the North Kingdom headed for what is now Mirabar. By all accounts, he was mad, and hoped to extend a dwarven empire into the sea. Once there and settled, he grew restless again, and headed further west with his troop, finally settling his nerves in sight of the sea over the Shangarn River. There the dwarf leader died, and his heir demanded that the folk followed him in order to build a settlement in tribute to the Clanmaster Star's grand vision of a dwarven empire. The dwarves found extensive deposits of iron in the hills surrounding their valley, and in doing so named their city Ironmaster. Ironmaster proved true to its name, and the dwarves have been tunneling out under to tundra for centuries. Following the veins of metal, this brought them into contact with the Dwargar of the Deep Kingdom a generation back, and Ironmaster has been at war with them ever since. Storn was himself a veteran of many battles for tunnel territory, and despite being so young that not a hair of his beard was white, his knowledge of tunnel fighting tactics rivaled my own. Their war with the Dwargar isn't Ironmaster's only secret, however. My friend Storn wielded 2 silvered axes as befits any devout follower of Clan Giddon's Silverbeard. But when I returned to him, an axe had been thrown in the heat of battle. I noticed its remarkable weight, and Storn told me that the blade was not steel beneath, but adamantine. I questioned him more about this, and his readiness to tell me of its origin speaks to both the abundance of adamantine among the Ironmaster dwarves and of my friend's innocence about the wider world. Apparently, the dragon-worshipping humans of the distant land of Turin have long given raw adamantite mined from their island to the smiths of Ironmaster, and they render finished works of adamantine back to the Northlanders in return. Of course, not all the adamantine makes it back to the Northlanders, but since the humans are ignorant of the means of forging adamantine, they are likely none the wiser. What a trove of arms and armor must lie hidden beneath the Ironmaster's borders. Ah, well, surely they put it to a good use against the Dwargar. I don't think Storn will mind my sharing his city's secrets. You can go and ask him if you like. He'll no doubt enjoy another little quote-unquote vacation from the war in the tunnels. Pokeniner, hello! Thank you very much for tuning into the stream. So, we do have a new stream. We do have somebody who just came in, so I think I would like to venture to read just one more article. This one is going to be for Mithril Hall. So since you're new to the chat, Pokediner, I am Brady the RPG Cat, and we are a stream devoted to RPGs and the prevalence of Dungeons and Dragons based lore. And once a week we do a stream called Tabletop Lore, where we read out of some of the major guidebooks in 5e, and we're currently reading the Sword Coast Guide in a section that is mostly about dwarf lore and villages. Okay, so this for certain is going to be the last article that we read. Mithril Hall, the ancestral home of Clan Battlehammer. Mithril Hall was a place of great potential wealth when it was founded in the cities of Old Delzoun. Dwarves of Clan Battlehammer left Citadel Adbar, heading west in the hopes of finding mithril deposits hidden in the southern spurs of the Spine of the World. These they found, and so beginning the delving of Mithril Hall with Clan Ironshield, founding Settlestone nearby as a means of buffering the market for the products of the halls. Or Mithril Hall enjoyed centuries of profit before its delving permitted the Shadow Dragon Shimmergloom to break through into the world. A settlement of thousands was reduced to fewer than 300, all of them too young, too old, too weak, or too ill to fight, who fled to Settlestone. There they waited for months for word from King Garum that their lands were again safe. When messengers to the city did not return, it was clear that Mithril Hall had been lost, and its dwarves headed north, first to Ironmaster, where they were treated with such distress that they couldn't remain, and then to Icewind Dale. When Garum's grandson Branor was old enough, and sure enough of his path, he gathered allies to retake his former homeland, and went on a great many adventures with a group later known as the Companions of the Hall. At the end, Branor slew the dragon Shimmerglue. Branor slew the dragon Shimmerglue, and reclaimed the Mithril Hall for Clan Battlehammer after almost 2 centuries. After Branor regained the throne, his personal friends attracted some powerful enemies to Mithril Hall, including the Drow of Menzo Berenzin. This is one reason, his supporters claim, that the king abdicated in favor of his ancestor Ganaglarg Battlehammer to protect the people from his personal enemies. Some of Brenor's detractors claim it was wanderlust that made him leave, but none will bother or dare to ask him. In any case, when Ganaglarg died, Branor did his duty and resumed his throne. Before Branor died, he was instrumental in gaining dwarven support for the Treaty of Gorham's Gorge, which brought peace between the dwarves and the Orc Kingdom of Many Arrows. When the orcs, in time, broke their treaty and made war in the north, he returned from the dead almost as though he had been summoned to rally the dwarves to defend themselves and punish their enemies. Some say he delayed receiving the rewards of Mordin's dwarf form to return and aid his fellows and kinsfolk. Such sacrifice, such loyalty, makes him a dwarf worthy of the crown. Branor Battlehammer, the 8th and 10th and 13th king of Mithril Hall, no longer leads Mithril Hall or the Battlehammer dwarves that lived there. Since his return to life, he has refocused his attention on Gauntlgrim and doesn't claim the kingship of his former home. Instead, the crown has been offered to General Dagnabbit Waybeard, granddaughter of Branor's ally, the great General Dagna. When I last visited Mithril Hall a few years ago, I passed through the rebuilt ruin of Settlestone, where a garrison of 200 stands to protect the approach to the Mithril Hall. Once I greeted the gates, the massive granite doors proved to be heavily guarded and nearly impossible to open from the outside. Mithril Hall's defenders call themselves the hosts of the Hall, a disciplined, well-armored cohort that is willing to defend the city to the last dwarf. The famed Gutbuster Brigade is part of the host, battle rangers who strike fear into any enemy intelligent enough to realize whom it is they face. Travelers allowed inside the city are housed in upper-level guest chambers just inside the labyrinth of caverns known as the Maze. From there, the paths led down to the middle levels of the city, past its various furnaces and onward to either the lower levels and the deeper mines where guests aren't permitted, or the Undercity where non-dwarf visitors are prohibited. Despite its recent reputation and the growing legend surrounding its most famous king, Mithril Hall is much more a mine than it is a city. Like most dwarven realms, it lost significant numbers to the orcs and saw its population further depleted by Brenner's quest for Gauntlgrim and the resulting permanent relocation of some of its people. As a result, Mithril Hall's numbers are sorely diminished at present, and it remains to be seen whether its fortunes will follow suit. Alrighty, so this concludes our broadcast day. I hope you've enjoyed everything that I've brought to you today, both the overview of the Ginny Dies 2023 calendar and the passages that we read for Sword Coast Guide. Once again, if you're interested in purchasing Ginny Dies 2023 calendar, it is available for $30 from Ginny Dies Shopify shop, which is guinnydie.myshopify.com. And then once again, I will go ahead and I will post this in chat. Always enjoyable. Thank you for sharing everything with us. Oh, well, it is my pleasure. You know, I have no doubt gone to very great lengths just to share with everybody the entries of Dungeons and Dragons 5 ebooks. So, thank you once again for tuning in. Once again, we are sponsored by Great Media Games. For inexpensive TCG single cards, please visit greatmedia.games and use the code 10finity at checkout for 10% off of your online purchase. This stream is also brought to you by our donation campaign supporting Children's Hospital Colorado through Extra Life. So please consider giving a donation. We're going to be leaving our donation links open until December 31st. So thank you everybody once again for tuning in. We're going to do a stream now. Let's see who is worth visiting on Twitch right now. Let's see. So they might be good. What are they up to? That might be interesting. Oh, you know what? Marin Mermaid is on right now, so absolutely, let's pay a visit to Marin Mermaid. She is one of the participants in our actual play RPG show, One Shots for the Meowing Portal, and also runs a variety stream of her own. So I think she is in the middle of playing Littlewood. Let's see if we can start with a shout out. I think I clicked this one myself. Really should do something about that audio. Yeah, definitely muted. It happens. Oh well, better luck next time. She has a great laugh too. I just really like the way she laughs. Alrighty then, let's go ahead and let's head over to Marin Mermaid's channel. So tomorrow we're just going to be doing a peripheral, obligated, simply executed, chill Christmas special when we play Christmas Lemmings Freeware. I have the 4 versions of it downloaded and ready to play on my computer. And we're going to be doing that tomorrow at 7 p.m. Mountain Standard Time. And Friday, we're actually going to be doing our slightly more official Christmas special. We are going to be doing our One Shots karaoke special, which is also going to be at 7 o'clock. So thank you, absolutely everybody, for watching. You guys have been great and patient and you've listened well. Have a good night, everybody.